Welcome back to the Scale Forward podcast. I'm your host, Russell, and today I'm joined by Tom Elliott. Tom's the founder of OcuRoot, a developer tool built to simplify how companies manage production environment. Tom's been in the industry for nearly 20 years. He's ran DevOps at scale. He's gone through 2 IPOs, and then he took the leap to build the tool that he always wanted. Tom, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
No worries. But let's start with your background, Tom. You spent years running DevOps, as we said, like 20 years, 2 decades. That's a long time before building OcuRoot. What was the moment that you knew you had to build your own thing?
Yeah, so I think at the back of my head, I've always wanted to go out and build my own thing. There's like a bit of an ego thing there. There's a bit of a like, oh, hey, I'm sure I could do just as well as all these other guys. But what really sealed it for me was I finally had an idea that I believed in, and I ran the numbers and realized that I had the funds to get this rolling. The main sort of like idea catalyst, I guess, was my last job. We were wanting to stand up a copy of our production environment in the EU for like GDPR, data sovereignty, all that kind of stuff. And it basically took us 3 years to do that because we had to like wait for the infra team to set up the cloud accounts, and then the networking team had to get in and set up some stuff. Then the database team, and then all the product teams had to make sure they were going in the right order. And we had like 10 years of legacy and manually configured things. And it was so hard to put together a plan that we were comfortable with. So I started thinking about what we would need to make that process easier. And so I'm building OcuRoot as a tool that could potentially make that kind of project like a one-click type thing, or at least something that you could plan more easily, see how it was going to run, do more testing, and have greater confidence in it.
Awesome. Makes a lot of sense. Big leap of faith. You mentioned something interesting there. You have enough cash to take this leap. So I'm guessing with the IPOs, you're leveraging a bit of equity there to be able to do that.
Yeah. So yeah, like as you said, I went through 2 IPOs over various years. Some of them better than others. One I actually joined the company 2 weeks before they went public, so I'm not sure that entirely counts. But working for a public company, you know, in the tech field, you can get equity as part of your compensation. And that built up over a period of years. And to be completely honest, I always treated it as something of a bonus and never really did anything with it. So I had cash lying around that I put into an investment account, considered buying property, but like I live in New York, so it like didn't make a whole lot of sense at the amounts I was at. And, you know, I was sort of treating that as, okay, I'm building up a retirement account in a not very tax effective sort of a way. So I kind of joke with my wife that this is sort of like my mini working retirement, you know, like living off some of the equity and the interest that we can accrue from that.
Awesome. I mean, that's the beauty of the world that you play in, right? You might make it big, you might not if you get a little piece of equity. Okay. Tell us more about OcuRoot. What problem does it solve? And, you know, you kind of touched on it, but who's the ideal user?
Yeah, sure. So the main problem that OcuRoot's aiming to solve is to manage deployments to larger numbers of production environments. So I've talked to a lot of companies who have a set of production environments that may be geographically split, like we mentioned in my previous role. You could also have separate production environments for each customer. I was talking to someone recently who had some really interesting database configurations so that like every customer gets their own database. And you could also want ephemeral environments. So I was talking to one firm that creates a new developer environment every sprint for each of their development teams. So they have sort of a clean place that they can work on things and kind of trust that everything other than their stuff's going to work. And what OcuRoot is intended to do is to provide a map for those environments. So you can see all of the things that should be deployed there. You can see the way that they relate to each other, so that creating a brand new environment that matches those rules is going to be really, really easy. And all of the configuration is also in imperative language rather than declarative. So basically, if you can write Python, you can configure these deployment pipelines, configure all of these rules, and you don't need to learn a whole bunch of different things that I've had to invent just so that you can, you know, loop through a few values.
All right, because not everybody's technical, especially not every founder. Can you break that down so a 10-year-old can try and understand that? If I'm a founder of a SaaS, what problem are you solving for me? Or for my team?
Sure. So let's boil it down to it's very simplest. It like helps development teams get things out to complex environments more easily. So as a
There
company
we go.
scales and grows, yeah, makes it easier to work with that kind of thing. It's funny you mentioned people not being technical. I went to a pitch event a couple of months ago, and it was like everyone was getting up and sort of going through their slide deck and pitching their business. I wasn't going to do it, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot just for the practice. Get up there, no slides. I'm like, all right, how many of you are developers? Room full of 50 people, one person raises their hand. I'm focused on you for the next 5 minutes.
Should have said how many people are vibe coders.
Yeah, everyone.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, and then that paints a good picture. Now, one unique thing you've done is you've gone ahead and made this open source, right? So what made you go down that decision instead of sort of more like a SaaS play?
Yeah, so it was kind of an interesting back and forth on that one for me, because originally I was thinking I'd put something out open source because it's a developer tool and so many of them are open source. And that seemed like, from my perspective as a developer, as a person who used to buy a lot of developer tools, like I'd always want something I could try out, and open source is an easy way to do that. And I was talking to a few people who are like very entrenched in the B2B world. And it's all about like, oh no, you got to make money from the get-go. You got to be selling immediately, all that kind of thing. So I put that on hold, and I was looking at building a product that would be more hosted. It would require people to sign up, all that, lead gen stuff.
Yeah.
And I went through an alpha program with that, and it was kind of good, but it was like, it didn't feel like it was getting a lot of traction. I didn't think people were like feeling like they could do anything interesting with it, because it was sort of locked down. And then I read this book called The Developer Facing Startup, that basically just reaffirmed everything that I thought as a developer about how developers discover and try new tools. And a big thing is like someone, an engineer or a team lead wants an opportunity to just try something out before they make a recommendation to their boss. And they need to be able to try it out for free in some sort of meaningful, if restricted way. So what I went back to the drawing board and thought about, okay, well, what pieces of this can be open sourced, and how much value do I want to deliver in that initial experimentation phase? And I found a balance that I'm currently happy with. We'll sort of see see how
it
time
goes.
on. Yeah. But the thing that I'm aiming for is to sort of deliver largely what people can already get for free, and then a little bit more, so they get that additional value and get excited about it.
Okay, what was it about the alpha that you think what made you think it was a failure? Just didn't make money, didn't get traction?
So I wouldn't necessarily say it was a failure, because every learning opportunity is a win, right?
Correct. I used a terrible word. You're right.
But something that I noticed was that people were going through the quick start, and they liked the concept, but they couldn't take the leap from playing around with it in a very guided way to actually using it for a real thing. One, that made me look at the design a bit more critically and think, okay, well, what things do I actually want to be capable of doing from day one? Like what is sort of like the minimum set of use cases here? And I realized that some of them would actually take a hell of a lot more work to implement, and quite a bit of upheaval. And the other side was like, every time I wanted to bring someone on board here, I had to actively onboard them. There was like a bunch of work involved in getting someone to just try it out. And, I wanted to kind of take that away, make it a little bit more self-guided. But, if I want to focus on someone and get more specific feedback from them, I can always hop on a call with somebody. But I felt like it wasn't the best use of my time to do that for absolutely everybody.
Honestly, I think that's as the kids say, a goated move. A lot of these young devs that I know and talk to, building all these, like behind all these super successful SaaS, even a personal friend of mine, they want everything open source. They don't want to talk to anybody. They don't want to sign up to anything. Super Gen Z, don't talk to me. Just let me figure out if I like it or not. So I think that was a good move on your part, albeit if that means that growth is a little slower, right? So over the next 12 to 24 months, what does success look like to you for OcuRoot?
So I think the main thing that I want to see is people using this in production, like way more than they currently are.
Right.
I've got a POC or two running that's operating in a pretty limited way. I think people are doing the right kind of things with this sort of tool. Like it's a lot to ask to sort of rip out your existing CI/CD system and put in something new. So I wanted to make it easy for people to just try it in a small capacity on like 1 or 2 projects. And people are doing that, which is nice. But what I really want to see is sort of, a growth in the number of organizations that are using this, but the level of problem that they're tackling with it, and the sort of the criticality of the kind of problems they're tackling. So, looking at things that, hey, if this went wrong, would impact their bottom line. If someone trusts me enough to do that, that's a big deal.
Right. So you're not looking to exit in 24 months or anything. Are you able to touch on sort of the revenue model? Are you looking to make money out of this in the next 12 to 24 months? What, have you thought about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, everyone likes money, right? And,
And needs it.
yeah. I mean, I don't have infinite funds. There is a line at which I am comfortable, and there's a point at which it will be sort of me taking too much out of the equity that I accrued. And so, my thoughts around revenue from this kind of product, there's sort of two angles to this. First of all, there's like an enterprise product, sort of hosted or self-hosted. So I can say, hey, you can buy licenses for this, and this is going to give you, X additional features that are really critical to run as a large organization. And these are the like user management things. Will be something like, if you run this hosted, the performance is definitely going to be better than the open source model. And I could say that you get SSO if you pay, but then I'll end up on that website, which may or may not be a good thing. So all backlinks are used for it. The other side of it is services. And what I'm seeing is that there's a lot of companies who need help with DevOps and CI/CD in particular. And OcuRoot as a product is not necessarily going to be the immediate best thing for them, and they may need some guidance setting it up if they do want to do that. So providing support and consulting services in that area is something I'm also exploring. That, in addition to potentially bringing in a bit of one-off revenue to sort of keep things going, also provides a learning opportunity. Like if I can get in front of more companies that have different kinds of problems, I can make the product better as well.
Right. I mean, dare I say, if OcuRoot only serves as a lead magnet for your services, damn, that's one way to build a lead magnet, Tom. It's a lot of effort.
I think everything feeds into everything else, right? Yeah.
It's definitely not repeatable for the average Joe, that's for sure.
Not repeatable for me. I've been working on this thing for a year.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah. So, anyways, it was just when you were saying that, I thought that might be funny. Okay. And so, you've been working on it for a year. You said you had an alpha that you kind of shifted towards open source. What's been your go-to market strategy so far?
So I've tried a few different things, and some things work better than others. I think what's most important for me is approaches that are repeatable and don't drain me. So the things that are working the best for me are honestly like just meeting people in person. So I go to a lot of events, go to conferences, go to meetups. Like typical week, I'll probably manage 2. 3 on a good week. Tech week, I did 9. And it's just, like the more people I talk to, the more I learn about what people really need. And I get surprised by the kind of companies that are actually interested in this sort of thing. Initially I was setting an ICP that was very, very specific at 500 to 1,500 employees, like tech forward, engineering team of X size. And then I started talking to people who are like, no, we definitely have this problem, and we have an engineering team. But, they were either bigger, maybe smaller, maybe they're in a different industry. It just sort of made me realize that I couldn't predict who was going to want this. If I'm like not picky about who I talk to, I'll be surprised, which is nice. Also, like, it's nice to kind of build an actual relationship with people. It sort of feels a little bit like cheating, because it's like, oh, I'm just asking my friends for, if they need this, if they want to try it out. But I was looking back at the alpha, and like of the 25 people and organizations that were involved in the alpha, like 2/3 of them were people I met.
Okay. Old school.
Yeah.
And funny enough, probably works best. I guess that's, it's not scalable. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
However, you're not necessarily looking to scale super quickly. So it makes sense, right? You build these foundations, these connections, they try it, you get feedback, you get better, and then maybe you can, depending what route you go down, you can turn on the taps in other methods like obviously digital cold outreach and all that sort of stuff. However,
Yeah.
you did say that you've tried cold outreach before, right?
Yes. Yeah. And
Hated it, loved it.
absolutely hated it. I mean, I've been on the receiving end of this stuff for years, and
So is everyone, yeah.
yeah, yeah, and it's like you see a few good examples, but you also see some really lazy cold outreach, and a lot of it's frustrating. I don't want to be that guy a lot of the time, and I know there are ways to do it well, and there are ways to do it that don't come off in that way, but
Yep.
I just find it like emotionally exhausting to even sort of like draft these things up and then like, press the button to start sending messages out.
Right. Fair enough. I mean, it definitely works. It's not that it doesn't work. I mean, we're
Yeah,
literally having this conversation because I sent you a random email, right? So
absolutely.
it's not that when it goes out, I don't go cringe, send. It's,
Yeah.
I don't think it ever gets easier, but there is a right and a wrong way to do it for sure. And like everything, a time and a place. Do you think you will continue to go to events forever, or are you going to go to events in new cities? Because you're in New York, there's a crap ton of events there every week or month, as you said. What about? I mean, I imagine Silicon Valley. Everybody says about that. What about San Fran? Have you tried going over there for any events?
No, mostly because there's it's not a negligible cost to take a trip over to the other side of the country for one thing.
That's true.
There's so much going on in New York that I don't feel like I've really tapped that out yet. I'm definitely seeing diminishing returns. Like I go to a lot of events and I see the same people, which is
Ah, okay, yep.
both very nice socially, but also okay. Well, my network isn't great. And yeah, I mean, I've also looked at loose-ish events where you could sort of do like a day or an overnight kind of trip. Like I went to a conference in DC a few months ago, and that was a nice break and met a bunch of new people there. There's opportunities to get out of the city. I'm just like not quite at the point where I want to be really exercising.
Fair enough. Can I throw in a little hack that somebody told me?
Absolutely.
Okay. Young kid out here. So I'm out in Thailand. I've been here for 10 years. There's a lot of entrepreneurs out here. SEO is a big thing here. AI, cybersecurity, founders, you name it. And I got invited to a founders dinner. I was like, oh, that's new because co-working events, you see the same people. Co-working spaces, you see the same people. So this was a founders dinner in Bangkok. And I thought, oh, this will be fun. So we went there. It was great, met new people. And he's like, I'm having another one next month, but you can't come to that. You can come to the next one. I was like, why can't I come to the next one? The one in the following month. He said, got to get a new rotation of people. Anyways, without boring you, the ROI on founders dinners, I had no idea about this, but he said, do the math. You do one dinner every month, you get 6 people, you pay for it, might cost you, well, out here, it's going to cost you $500. In New York, probably going to cost you $5,000, but you're going to spend X amount, right? And you meet these founders. If you get, for his case, if if you get equity or whatever, the ROI is there. So I wonder if for you, I wonder if founder dinners would be a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly attended a number of those. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, it's a great opportunity to connect with new people and sort of also like open up different avenues. From my perspective, like I went to an event like that not too long ago, and one of the organizers was like, "Oh, by the way, we also have a meetup, and I'm going to that regularly," and met a bunch of interesting people through that.
Right.
And like hosting events is something that I've been thinking about, and I think it's kind of a case of sort of like finding the right angle, the right collection of people
Yeah.
to sort of because I think if that was the kind of avenue that I went down, first and foremost, like I'd want it to be community building. Like this is about getting people together who can connect with each other, can have interesting conversations, and maybe work with each other in the future. And hey, any benefits to the business will come into that because there's like reputation building and
Yeah.
additional connections to that too.
Not just your bloody mates coming in for the free wine.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh God, I got added to a bunch of WhatsApp groups about New York events, and it's all like, oh, do they have food there? The bar's cash. How dare they?
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, imagine hosting a lunch or a dinner. Yeah. Anyways. Yeah. Okay. So when it comes to building what you're building, an open source dev tool, do you think the typical SaaS playbook GTM is going to work, or have you seen it not work? For example, the outreach thing, the demo, the book of demos, all that sort of stuff. I don't imagine that's going to work too well in your world, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think there's like a couple of things that are definitely different when selling developer tools versus your typical SaaS, like your AI SDR, for example. Everyone's trying to sell one of those right now. First of all, the people that you're going to be talking to are going to be very split in terms of their responsibilities. So, like, the people who are going to get excited about most dev tools are developers, hopefully, if it's good for them. But the person who's going to be signing the check is going to be someone completely different. And I've sort of found that people don't often do sort of like comparisons of tools. They don't really do like, oh, hey, we need this new tool at this point. They're always trying to solve problems. And half the time, if they find a tool that solves that problem, it's through sheer luck. Just incredibly good timing. So I think that like timing for outreach is significantly trickier for developer tools, because you've got to find someone, not just that they're like slightly annoyed with their existing tool and they can like easily move across from one SaaS to another, but like you've got to find someone who has like a very, very specific problem, and you have to describe your product in a way that is going to solve exactly that problem to get them to bite and get them excited, which sort of like it, from what I can see, it requires a lot more planning, a lot more focus. It seems like it's a lot harder to nail down the right kinds of people to be talking to. Although a lot of this is speculative because I've never sold other SaaS.
No, I think you're right. However, I think you could blanket that statement kind of across the board. And what I mean by that is if you imagine a period, if you imagine a pyramid, and at the top is where all your buyers are, who are ready to buy now. That's only a very small percentage of people. That's with any industry. And so I think more marketers think about it in a way of, we're just marketing to the other 97% of your audience that's not ready, just so that they hear about you, see you and everything. But in your case, it's probably a tougher sell, right? For the reason that you said. And then also there's the convincing part of, hey, leave behind what you've been doing and come switch over to this and come get a new headache. Kind of, not really, but like think about that. I'd compare it to payment processing. It's people who are so familiar with Stripe. It's so easy. If you have another payment processor that's going to be 0.5% less, you might save, depending on your volumes, 10, 100K a year. But the risk factor of switching to the payment processor is too scary for them, so they don't do it. You're forever trying to convince them or explain to them that, no, it's actually okay, and this is why. And so that's the 97% of people that you would probably need to be marketing to, and then there'd be 3% of people ready to just switch right away. So yeah, I would agree with kind of what you said. I want to touch on something because I find it quite interesting. You've got a master's degree in AI, right? But you're skeptical about letting AI agents run rampant through businesses and all these sorts of things. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. So technically, my master's is right. This was also, I graduated in 2006, and this was when AI was basically, you learn how to build a perceptron,
Right.
detection algorithms and all this kind of thing. Very math heavy. Things have changed a lot since then, and things changed even in the first 10 years after I graduated. I think that AI, even before LLMs became a big thing, it was like a lot more accessible than it was when I was in college. I remember we did a hackathon, and a guy basically built a training setup to better assign support tickets, and because of all the tooling that was available, he was just able to do that. Whereas when I was
Yep.
learning this stuff, it was a hell of a lot more involved, and
Yeah, months rather than a coffee and Claude Code.
yeah, well, even easier now. This was like 7 or 8 years ago. My feeling about where we are right now with AI, I mean, it was interesting to see people go from calling it machine learning to back to calling it AI. All of a sudden, it's like, oh wow, this looks like it's smart now. It feels more human now. I like the, God, I'm trying to remember. I think it might have been Neil Stephenson who called it pseudo intelligence, which is probably feels like a much better way of describing it. But I think that there's a hell of a lot of hype now. I was at an event the other day and someone likened it to the .com boom where everyone had an idea and it seemed
Yep.
trivial to, get rich off one idea. We're going to see some sort of a reckoning, kind of like levels are going to be set back. People are going to realize what it is actually capable of, what it's good for, what it's not good for. We're starting to see some of this now. I'm like, every other day I'm hearing about an AI company shutting down or like, merging with another one. It is incredibly powerful. There's a hell of a lot you can do with it. The more I use it, the more I feel like I want to be more deliberate about how I use it. And it can either be a magical experience or, you feel wonderfully productive when you're using it to work with you and sort of, skip over the bits that you don't really want to think too much about. But then you
Uh,
let it go on its own and it's terrible.
yeah. I'll ask you how you use AI in your day to day next, but just you mentioned something pretty big there, I think, and I completely agree with you. It is like the .com. We're at the highest of highs now, and probably for the next, I don't know, who knows, X amount of time, right? But yeah, I'm hearing and seeing a lot about AI companies shutting down. I was having a conversation with a guy called Ron the other day, and he's been around this stuff for years and years. And he was telling me, and it was kind of hard for me to understand, but there's no guardrails when it comes to AI. And so he
Mhm.
sees security being a really big risk, especially when you got companies just pushing, or like, like startups just pushing code out, no human in the loop, stuff like that. So that's scary. But I want to know what you think perhaps is overrated in AI and perhaps what's underrated about AI.
I think anything that says we're going to use AI to generate you a ton of leads, that's
No.
alarm bells start going on that one. It's like, you get the email with all the M dashes. I think I think it's overrated for content generation, basically, and sort
Yeah,
of
yeah,
like
yeah. Agree. Yeah.
put this in and get like really good prose out of it. The prose is decent, but it's obviously AI. It lacks a soul. And an underrated use, I think, is just taking enough pressure off someone that they can be more effective. Like if you're having a bad day and you can't, you stare at the blank page and you're like, oh, I don't know how to start. What I tend to do when I'm writing a blog post, and I try to blog every week, really need to write one today actually. What I'll tend to do is like get my general idea, write a paragraph, maybe a couple of bullet points saying this is roughly what I want to talk about, do a draft, and it'll spit out absolute crap, but it will have decent and I'm no longer staring at a blank page. So I'll just then rewrite each paragraph, maybe move some things around. I go straight into editing, which kind of stops me from procrastinating. I feel like I can get rolling a lot more quickly with that
Right.
kind of just initial shot at something.
I can hear Surfer SEO and Neuron yelling at the screen saying, our AI is really one-click content generation. And I can hear my friend who's literally building a tool to do this stuff screaming at me saying, Russ, plug the tool. We're working on this. But yeah, honestly, it's pretty tough to crack. No matter how many times you say, update your memory to never use an M dash again, it says, okay, M dash, I will never use it. It's
Yeah,
just it's so annoying.
I use I use the Anthropic models a lot with my IDE, and I've just told it so many times. Can you not say perfect when you've done a task? Because it isn't. It's never perfect. It's just frustrating. I mean, this is that like if the more free reign I give AI, the more frustrated I am.
Right.
And so I'll go into these cycles if I'm just using the chat to like vibe code something. And yeah, it's a good
Mm-hmm.
way to do a first pass. Or like if I really just, I'm like, if I'm stuck on a bug, like 30% of the time it'll figure it out for me, or at least give
I mean,
me a good path to go down. But I'll get into these loops where it's doing the same things over and over again, and it like fixes one thing and breaks the other, and it's like it is the most frustrating way to code.
Tom, you can come clean. Have you sworn at AI? I believe we all have.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so you're damned just as much as me. Then it's coming for me the amount of times I. What is this?
I Everyone says be nice to the AI because when there's the uprising, they're going to remember. But right now, the context window is so small, they're not going to remember when you start.
GenSpark had something to say about that with its million token context window or whatever it is. How else are you using AI in your everyday? I mean, content, idea generation, all that sort of things. Do you just stuff around with it on a weekend to vibe code something?
So I use AI pretty heavily when I'm coding now, but it's more of a case of I still see it as a fancy autocomplete, and the
Right.
autocomplete features in editors, like people say that it's not enough, but like to be honest, like yesterday I had to do a refactoring exercises and I just had to do the same change like 20 times in various places, and it was just tap 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 tap, just did it. It's great, but massive time
Sweet.
saver. There's also like I'm finding the sweet spot of like the size of problem that it can handle well. So I'll be working on, adding a new feature. I'll sort of get a rough idea of the design in my head, and I can go to the AI and I can say, hey, I would like a function to do this. It will take these inputs. It will give this output. Usually it can just nail that and write a bunch of tests for it. And I mean, I guess that's, sort of proving the junior engineer analogy, but it's like, if I can break down the problem enough, it can do a really good job. If I give it a really big problem, it's going to struggle.
Right.
Unless you're giving it quite a lot of detail.
Okay. We'll move to a lightning round shortly, but I just had a thought pop into my head. Solo founder, a year in, tons of experience. What are some of the bottlenecks you're experiencing as a solo founder, and do you have a plan to overcome them? Paint a picture for those who want to start something on their own. What are they going to run into? Problems and stuff like that.
No one's telling you what to do until you've got a customer who has a specific problem, and like then you can get a real good kick from solving someone else's problem immediately. But you've got to figure out how to manage your own time. I personally find that context switching is really difficult. If I try to do too many things in a day, I'm going to get overwhelmed. And I went through a period where I was using my calendar to portion out time to do specific tasks. And that works well for some tasks, but not for others. And I think if you have a task that like you definitely know can get done in that time, or like if you only get half of it done, that's still a win, then great. Time box that out. Some tasks take longer, some tasks you got to revisit, or you just don't know exactly how long they're going to take. I do go through periods where I feel like I'm neglecting one aspect of the business over another. To put that into a concrete piece of advice, I think build ritual, build out ways that if there's something you feel you need to do regularly, make sure that you do it every day. I have a standing calendar appointment for myself to write a post on BlueSky that is literally just a stand-up post of like, this is what I did yesterday, this is what I'm doing today, these are the problems I'm having, which some people have really sort of appreciated getting that insight. It's, sort of a sneaky side go-to-market social thing to be doing. But it's like basically free content. I'm going to be thinking about those things anyway. Got into that rhythm. I am doing that regularly. Forcing myself to run a blog post every week. Not sure how effective that's been, but it keeps me in that rhythm, and it's forcing me to learn things, forcing me to research things. So like having those rituals and those regular things, I think can really help with stuff that you worry you might.
Where are you? First of all, may as well tell us what your BlueSky handle or thing is.
Yeah, sure. My handle on BlueSky is telliott.me, and that's 2 L's and 2 T's.
That'll be in the description.
Yep.
And where do you publish these blog posts?
So I've got 2 blogs that I alternate between. There's the OcuRoot blog on OcuRoot.com, and that's mostly talking about new features, things I've been working on. It's sort of a progress log at the moment. And then there's my personal blog about DevOps called the Friday Deploy on Substack.
Right.
And I'm talking like initially I was talking about CI/CD and then broader DevOps stuff, and more and more AI things have snuck in.
Substack, I'm triggered. Beehive, go to Beehive.
I'm actually looking at, first of all, pulling all of that and putting it on sort of a self-hosted thing. I've been using it to do emails for the OcuRoot blog. That's been nice.
Beehive.
But I'm also thinking of cross-posting to like dev.to and stuff like that as well. And it's that's one of those things that I just need to sit down and actually make.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, I mean, I think that's interesting. I'll also link those blogs there as well. If you just want to give them to me after the show, they'll be in the description, same as your LinkedIn and all that sort of stuff. Okay, moving on to what I like to call the lightning round. So, Tom, for this, I'm going to ask you a question. You have to try and give me an answer as quickly as you can. If it's super interesting, I'll ask you to elaborate. But if you're ready, I'll kick off the lightning round.
Yep, sure. Let's go for it.
Okay, first one. Would you trust AI to push code to production without human reviewing?
No.
Why?
I mean, again, it comes down to the quality thing. I mean, would you trust a human to push to production without someone else looking at it? Most companies have a code review process. All compliance is built around having two people in the loop. So yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, someone needs to at least glance at things and sign off on it.
But I'm different, Tom. I'm cracked. I don't need anyone to return. Okay. One developer tool you can't live without. You're not allowed to say OcuRoot.
I think probably Tilt, rediscovered that recently. It's a tool for running things locally. So if you've got a bunch of services that you need to test on your laptop, it makes it really easy to run them all, update them when you change the code. It's a very pleasant experience. I wrote about it on my blog last week, actually.
Shout out Tilt. Okay. You got an affiliate link? No, just kidding. Okay. So this is an interesting bootstrapping versus raising. Which one and why do you think is better?
So I think it depends at what stage you're at and what your goals are. And so right now, I'm in a position where I'm mostly interested in building a product that I believe in and getting people using it. I'm okay with slow growth. The side goal here is that I want to prove to myself that this can be a business. And if you take funding, you have already decided that this can be a business, as have all the investors. I think if I do choose to go down a funding route later on, I'd want to be in a position where I had way more proof than just sort of like coming out with an idea and incorporating, and makes those conversations a bit easier. I'm also seeing that there's an avenue where, hey, slow growth, building a reasonably sustainable business that doesn't have to scale at an insane rate, that can be in some ways a lot more comfortable. I'm like pleased that I've still got that avenue open to me if that becomes a possibility.
Yeah, very intentional with what you're doing, I think is key here. Okay. Before we round out the show, is there anything, any event that you have coming up that you're going to be at, or is there anything that you want to sort of let the listeners know about what you're doing in the next sort of, I don't know, month or two?
Yeah, I guess so. I tend to book my events like mostly a week or two in advance, so I don't know where I'm going to be in the near future. But big thing for me at the moment is getting that open source launch ready to go out. There is a link to the repo on the OcuRoot website now, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that still needs to happen. Still working on the documentation, still working on some examples. And as all that comes out, I'm going to be reaching out to more and more people, putting out more and more content about it. And, I'll probably end up on Product Hunt at some point, and I'll be pestering everyone to vote.
Okay. And one thing I always ask every founder before they go is, if you were to give a sort of younger founder who perhaps has more hair than we do, one piece of advice, what would you say?
So I would give a piece of meta advice as to take every single piece of advice with a grain of salt. Some people really know what they're talking about, but no one knows your business the way that you do. So be picky about what advice you do.
I love that. Thanks, Tom, for sharing. Thanks for being on the show. That brings us to the end of this episode of the Scale Forward podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with a founder, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks. Pleasure to be here.